Happy Friday, everybody. I felt especially inspired to create a video for you today that's two parts. The first part, I want to talk a little bit about the impact, the DNA and energetic impact that food has on our body each and every time that we eat. But even more specifically, I wanted to go into some of the impacts that our ancestral lineage and the foods that our ancestors of origin ate can still be impacting our DNA today. So let's dive into the ancestral lineage of the food that we eat and how it is impacting our DNA today. It's a really, really interesting topic. So if you guys are familiar with the paleo diet, this is not that, but it is kind of sort of rooted in the idea that perhaps we would be healthier if we ate more like our ancestors. But the one area of the paleo diet that falls short, and this is kind of where I'm trying to fill in the holes here, that I find even more compelling is the fact that our bodies have evolved. It takes a very long time for our bodies to evolve, but our bodies have evolved to be able to tolerate and digest and absorb nutrients over a long period of time. So there has been research done to show that perhaps it is actually even more important for us to focus on our own ancestral lineage. So whether or not you're from Northern Europe or from the Caribbean, or if you're from South America or from Asia, wherever you have your ancestral lineage, take a look at the foods that your ancestors ate, because you are probably a lot more likely to absorb and digest and tolerate those foods. So why am I talking about this at all? I see a lot of patients come to me who say, well, I know that avocados are really healthy for me, or I know that kale is really a superfood, but they don't tolerate it well and they don't understand why. And this goes back to a very philosophical root of my own practice in nutrition, and something I want to impart on you right now, that there is no one food or one diet that is going to be great for everybody. It's just not, that doesn't exist. There are sometimes meat and potatoes will work better for one person than a plant-based diet. So this is part of the evolution of your own personal nutrition journey and food journey, is to really take a look at what did your ancestors eat? Did they have things like avocado or kale or okra or whatever it may be? Did they have that in their diet? So take a look at that first, because if there are certain foods in your diet that aren't sitting well, it might be because of that. It might actually be because you do not have ancestral lineage to break down a specific type of food, or don't have those enzymes to break down that type of food. Just as a really quick example, Asians they have never evolved. Most actually people have not, but Asians specifically have not ever evolved to break down milk. They do not have the lactase enzyme. This is something to take a look at, specific foods and specific ingredients, and just to remind you that even though there might be fads or there might be a superfood out there that is being talked about and is all the rage, that doesn't mean that it's going to be good for you. We cannot discount the energetic connectedness that we have to food, and food that our DNA innately knows. And that concept might seem weird, but if you start eating, or if you incorporate foods that your ancestors have eaten and incorporate that back into your diet, it can be a very spiritual and very connected experience that I encourage my patients to dive into and look at. It can be a very, very intimate experience. Food is an intimate experience. Eating is an intimate experience, and it's different for everybody. But the celebration around food and the tradition around food and getting back into the actual real energy behind why we're actually choosing the foods that we're eating can be really, really powerful. And so I challenge you to take some time after watching this video to spend a few hours. Where are you from? Where are your ancestors from? If you've done the 23andMe DNA test, I did that a couple years ago, and I've had such a field day going and looking up all the different foods that my ancestors may or may not have eaten, and trialing them out in my own diet. So take that and play with it. It's a really, really fun exploration. Also, I want to make a very obvious point. I think it's obvious, but the more we choose foods, healthy foods that our ancestors have eaten, the less likely we are to choose foods like fast foods or foods that are highly processed and refined. Instinctively, when we start to think about our foods as an ancestral lineage and something that we are doing to connect with our roots, we will not be choosing foods like, sugar and Carl's Jr. and what have you, sodas and things like that. So it goes without saying that if you start to incorporate foods like this, and this kind of does, go back to what I had talked about in a previous video about the paleo diet, that it is generally healthier because you are avoiding those highly processed food that have come about in our Western diets that we have not evolved to be able to tolerate well, which is why we see such a high spike in chronic diseases like obesity and diabetes and heart disease and hypertension and kidney disease and all of these things that are very, very much related to the foods that we're eating and that do not sit well with our diet because it's new and processed. So the more whole foods that you eat, the more foods that you eat from your own individual ancestral lineage, the more likely you are to have a very long and healthy life. And also, just to tie everything together, I want to really remind you that healing begins with ourselves. And by looking at our own ancestral lineage and utilizing the nutrition and the foods of our ancestors to really heal our own traumas, because we can't go out into the world and be better versions of ourselves and be better versions of ourselves for others and for the benefit of others if we're not first looking at our own trauma. And sometimes that is passed along from generation to generation. Actually, it is a lot. So take a look at that and explore that. And if you have any questions about what I mean by any of this, feel free to reach out and contact me. I hope you guys have a great day.